live. And let's see. Meeting is now streaming. And let's see. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Laughter for All podcast. I am comedian Nazar. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific time, and this is the show where we invite comedian and comedians to be funny, to share their life, but also to be real and to open up their life. And we also invite different people, from morticians to models to physicians to nutritionists, to talk about things that will really help you during this pandemic and in your life. So this show is not just being funny. It's called Laughter for All, but it's about being real, about real people opening their lives and sharing with you. Last week we had comedian Kathy Westfield, and after talking about laughter and everything, we end up talking about domestic violence. And there's other comedians who were talking about their issues in marriage and challenges and all that. So it's really helpful. So we want you to share. And thank you so much for making us number 56 on the comedy podcast. So that's really a big deal when you consider how many thousands of podcasts are out there that have to do with comedy and stand up and all that. So we thank you for that. Also, we want to remind you that every night on this channel, Facebook Live, Comedian Nazareth, we have a show called Live with Naz. And the goal of that show, we started back in March, and we are on show number, probably tonight, to show number 216. And the goal from that show is for you, for an hour a night, forget about your problems and just try to be funny and have people that support you, encourage you. And then we end up with prayer and just an encouragement. So join us every weeknight at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Well, right now I'm very excited because I have a friend that we used to do comedy a long, long time ago. I don't want to share how many, but a long time ago, we've done open mics together. She was a big, she was big in LA, and she was just, we'll talk about all this, but I want to introduce her officially. Leslie Norris Townsend lost her parents when she was in her teens. In order to support her three siblings, she started entering beauty pageants in hopes of bringing home a check. The award also helped pay for college. The contest required her to do a talent which helped her develop her singing and innate ability to improvise. Those skills translated into a job with Disney. Her comedic chops and in the Disney show got strong enough for her to tackle stand-up comedy. Leslie as television appearances include Comedy Central A&E's An Evening at the Improv, sketches seen on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. So please welcome Miss Orlando, Leslie Norris Townsend. How are you?
Woo!
How
Woo!
are you? Thank you so much
Oh,
for joining me.
fabulous! I'm in my living room in Ohio, and it is about 25 degrees outside, and it's snowing
Ouch.
dramatically. So my life is just whirling around show business right now.
Where in Ohio are you? Where in Ohio? I went to school in Ohio. So where in Ohio are you?
Where did you go to school in Ohio? I'm north of
University of
Dayton.
Toledo.
Oh, so I'm about 2 hours south,
On the
completely down.
71?
Yeah, 75,
75, yeah.
75, and then 70 is almost to Dayton. I live on a farm, so I am really very remote. It's very it's great that I can see you because we're really in the middle of nowhere. People used to say, "How many bars do you have?" And I'd say 45 in our town, and then I realized what they meant was, "What's your Wi-Fi? How many bars on your Wi-Fi?" But we have pigs and cows and horses on the farm. And when we get romantic, my husband likes me to whisper in his ear, E-I-E-I-O.
The,
So this is very different from when I knew you out in LA. That's for sure,
I
Naz. I
know.
mean,
I mean, uh,
I think you were the open. I think you were the MC one night in Newport Beach, and I believe I was doing the Miss America routine back then. You know,
yes.
where I did the swimsuit crown and the banner. So I took my beauty queen experiences and put them into stand up, which nobody was doing. Remember that back then? And I
Uh-huh.
would carry this. I had the in my suitcase. I had the swimsuit crown and banner and saxophone.
A
And
saxophone.
you introduced me, and I think Rhonda Shear was on with me that
Yes,
night.
I'll tell you what
Remember
happened.
Rhonda?
I remind you what happened. Playboy at the time did a whole thing on
Yes,
comedians, and I know you
yes,
refused to be on it, and I
yes,
honored that about you.
yes.
But I remember Rhonda Shear, and then what's her name? The big another one, Diane Jordan,
Diane Jordan, Diana
and
Jordan,
yeah, she
and uh, Felicia Michaels,
Felicia Michaels, and yes, and
and
they
Rhonda, and they
and
all
Rhonda
did
Shear,
the topless shoots.
yes, and
And
they
I was so broke back then when they asked us to do Playboy, and they were offering us $10,000
uh huh.
a person, and I just felt like I always felt, Nazareth, that I was more talented than that. Why would I
Mm,
want to do that? And why would I want to disparage myself, my body like that? And even though I wasn't uber religious
uh
at
huh.
the time, I had that moral compass constantly that this wasn't something that I really would want for later years. So I didn't do it. I passed it up, which was it was very tough because I needed the money.
It's, you know what, that's very honorable. I respected you so much, even though I wasn't a believer at the time. But I remember Jordan, she comes to me, goes, please, Naz, don't you dare mention Playboy. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is why the people came to this show, is after they saw the episode. But it's I appreciate it. Now tell me, this moral compass that you have, where were you born? How did you grow up? I knew your parents, you lost your parents at a young age.
Yes,
Tell me
and
about that.
in my teens, and I was from Pensacola, Florida. In fact, I've been down there in the summer. I mean, in the winter. Sorry about that. I was just down there, and then I'm waiting on the vaccine here. Because I had the health insurance up here. So they said, I thought you could just go get the vaccine. I could go back to Florida and go back to Pensacola. I'm from Gulf Breeze, Florida, which
I've
is
been there.
Pensacola. It's the Pensacola area. And when I was 14 years old, my life at home was very difficult. It was, but when you're in it, you really don't know. You're just trying to cover up. You're just
How
trying to.
difficult? Like what difficult? In which way
Well,
was
my
it
father
difficult?
was drinking heavily, and
Mm,
we were struggling to pay the bills, and we had a nice home. I mean, it's so funny because we always looked rich, but we really weren't. So be
mm.
careful when you want to be somebody else, because you never know what's really behind those doors.
Wow,
And
that's
you should
great
always
wisdom.
be grateful for really where you're at, because it was just, but what did I know? That was my life. That was our lives.
Mm, mm.
We were trying to make ends meet, and I was in high school, and I was 14 years old. And in Gulf Breeze, it was a big surfer clientele. Like, the surfers were the hippest people.
Right.
And there was a group of surfers that were very evangelical at the time, they had just become, it was a big, I, they
The
were called
Jesus
like the
movement.
Jesus freaks, like they were
The
called
Jesus
Jesus
movement.
freaks,
Yeah.
the Jesus movement.
Yeah.
And so the bus from the Brownsville Assembly of God,
Mm-hmm.
which was in Pensacola, which, Assembly of God is Pentecostal, and I was a Presbyterian. So my
Yeah.
mother would drop me off at the Presbyterian church, and, we didn't really learn the Bible verses or anything, and my mother never went, but she always made sure the children went to Sunday school.
Right.
And so she would drop us off, and we went to Sunday school, and because our lives was, my father came in really late, and he was not doing right. So,
Mm,
it was always mayhem.
mm.
So, we go to church. Anyways, in my town, I was in the ninth grade, and in my town, the Brownsville Assembly of God, which was way an hour away from where I lived, way on the other side of Pensacola, they sent a bus to my area, and these very hip surfer people would be on.
Uh-huh.
And we just want, and I thought, well, this was like show business. I wanted to be in show business, so what did I know? So the bus came to pick the kids up, see, that's why people don't do the bus ministries anymore. But there's all these kids out there that don't get the chance to really hear about God and Jesus. And
Mm.
I had never experienced a Pentecostal church. So I got on the bus, and with all these services, and they would have a full load of kids, all 9th to 12th grade. And with these surfer kids, Yancey Spencer was one of the big surfer people, and surfer stars in our area, and they had a surf shop that was called the Inner Light Surf Shop. So it was very instrumental in our little area. And we would get on the bus, and we'd go to church. We would go on Wednesday nights, and we would go on sometimes on Saturday nights, and sometimes on never on Sunday morning. It was Wednesday, I think, on Saturday nights. I can't quite remember. It was Sundays too.
Mm.
But so I started going to this Pentecostal church because, they had drums, and they had all this wild stuff on the stage that I had never seen before. I had never seen people running back and forth, and I would think, what, is there a fire here? Somebody should tell us all to leave, because I had never seen that kind of evangelicalism.
Right.
And of course, they had the big orchestra, and then they had the big choir, and then they had the pastor was just a wonderful servant of God, Pastor Don Cox,
Uh-huh.
who has since gone on, and he was just so animated. He was like, I just loved him. In my Presbyterian church, they didn't have people like that.
Right.
And he would just preach constantly. It's Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I mean, there were so many syllables in Jesus that I thought.
That's
And
funny.
so I was saved one night in this
Wow.
Wednesday night. I gave my life to Christ, and my mother was dying at home. She was very ill.
Oh.
And during that time, they came out and they would visit my mother a bit, because she got very sick into the second year I started going to this church. And my father was so upset with me that I went to the church so much. He said if I wanted to go to church that much, I should just be a nun. They didn't know this. And I really didn't either, to tell you the truth.
Right.
But these
Right.
were people that accepted these kids with jeans on and surfer t-shirts, and they, I just did. In fact, one time on a Wednesday night, as I stayed with the church during high school, I got involved with some Youth for Christ things through the church.
Right.
And I did the David Wilkinson. Remember David Wilkinson?
Yes, I remember him.
His book was, what was the book?
The Prayer of Jabez.
Yes, and he also had the Crusade for Christ books and things like that. And so we did some of his. I sang, and then I started singing in the church, and I really could sing. That's really, I mean, my talent. And I had done the plays in my high school and all that stuff. And I had also done all the plays in my county. So I was always like the star of the plays. So I started
So you wanted
singing.
to be in the show business.
Yes, right. And but I was very straight. I was about as straight as you could be to be in show business. I mean, to come from, we never know that sometimes you're not born in the church and you're not really raised in the church, but how important just a little salt, a little pepper can be sprinkled on somebody who needs a vision or a path of some sort.
Direction, yes.
And how important it is to reach out to those people that aren't, it's really, I always say it's really easy to be a Christian in church. It's hard to be a Christian out of church. It's hard to walk the walk. I mean, we can all pretend that we walk the walk, but it's really doing it. So that's kind of what happened to me in high school. And then and then I did a big evangelical thing in Pensacola that I was the star singer of the Crusade for Christ. And so when I was I was a senior and I was invited to go to the Oral Roberts. They invited me for a scholarship, and then I got
Uh,
another scholarship to a regular college,
uh-huh.
which was Berry College, which is a Christian college
Mm.
in Georgia. And during that time, my mother, she was pretty much almost gone, actually.
Was it
And
from cancer, right?
yes, cancer. And my father was not acting even close to right. We lost our house and all this stuff. So I had to go where the most money was for college. And I went to college, and during that year, she died, and then other things happened. And that's when I started doing the pageants. And I went to the Berry College instead of the Oral Roberts because there were just so many rules in the Oral Roberts situation that no makeup, don't do this, don't. And I thought, I was makeup queen. I was the makeup queen. So I mean, it was just a little too uh I felt too imprisoned, actually.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
really wanted to do Broadway, and I wanted to do theater. I wanted to do more theater. And I really didn't think there was an issue from being a Christian and doing theater. I
So
didn't
you did the pageants. You started doing pageants. Now,
and in college.
did you feel
I also was
beautiful?
the junior miss in high school. I became the junior miss in high school before my mother died. So I won some scholarship from that. And I never in a million years thought I was going to win any of that stuff. I just knew I had a lot of talent. God always gave me this talent. And he also gave me so much confidence. I just thought I had it. I just had all this
So you
confidence.
believe deep inside, I'm beautiful, I
Oh,
can win this.
I never thought I was beautiful, ever. I just
Hmm.
thought I was about as talented as a person I had ever met. It was really talent that I was driven by. I was never the
Hmm.
prettiest, and I was not tall, and I just had the talent. And in the Miss America program, it was 40% talent back then.
Back then.
It changed, yeah, back then. So and they gave scholarships. So
Oh.
when I was the junior miss, and actually when I went to the Brownsville Assembly, Kathy Lee Gifford came one night, and she
Hmm.
had been a junior miss in Maryland. Kathy Lee,
Yes.
from
Catherine
all
Gifford from Good Morning, I
yeah,
think
all
Good
the
Morning.
stuff, yeah, from all the stuff. Her name was Kathy Lee Epstein
Ah.
back then, and
Oh.
she was the junior miss. And so because she came to the church one night, and she spoke and she sang. She was older than me, and I'll never forget that she had shoes that matched her gloves, and I
Oh.
thought, and her purse, and I thought, I just wanted to be her. I mean, I thought anybody could have a purse and shoes and gloves that matched. And so that's how I started the pageant stuff, because she had done the junior miss, and then I was the junior miss in my area, never thinking I would win. Or I never really thought. I mean, as I competed for the next 3 years, I thought I was going to win always, but I didn't know in the beginning that I had the stuff to to
Hmm.
to win. I just had a lot of talent, and I had a lot of confidence. It doesn't really matter. Even I don't even think I was that great of a singer, really. I just
Hmm.
thought I was. And sometimes if you think it and you say it, and you can do so many things without. I was never a great stand-up, even back with you when we started, and everybody always thought I probably wasn't the best
No,
stand-up.
no, you were very funny, and you know what? I have to say this, Leslie. What you said is very, very important to people who are listening and watching. Is like, you know what? When you have that confidence, that can cover for so many other things that you don't have. When you have that confidence of knowing, hey, I can do that. I can do comedy. I can sing. I can be in a pageant, and that's just so important for young girls to, to
Or
understand
even
that.
boys. I think sometimes we raising my children here in Ohio, everybody's so humble, and I think that they get misconstrued with that you're being conceited, or you're being. But confidence is everything. It's it's really everything. If you don't have I mean, why would anybody want to listen to you talking about being a Christian if you didn't have confidence about it? Because, God gives us the confidence. But
Exactly,
I do
and
think it's
exactly.
important for, no matter who you're speaking with, you don't need a lot of people to give you the confidence.
I
You
gotta
don't
share
need
this.
everybody.
I gotta share this, Leslie, because it's very important to say this right now. Is before coming to Christ, I had so much confidence. I would go into talent show where they have dancers, singers, and no comedian ever won. But because of the confidence, I won those. When I came to Christ, now my confidence came in God, in Christ. So my confidence. So now when I go and I speak and I do a stadium and speak to people about Jesus, the confidence of these people listening to me, actually not interrupting, not heckling, not just leaving, and they respond to the message, is my confidence in who God is, not in me anymore. So that's very important to clarify that right now. It's like when you said that correctly, my confidence is in God. It's not, yeah,
Right,
but it
right,
was on ourselves when we were doing it for that.
right.
Yes.
Well, I also think, it's a voice that has, I think as parents, sometimes I really, my son my oldest son is in Nashville singing, and I try to dissuade him from doing this because it's such a hard life. This performing is just, I liken it to being an astronaut. I mean, you could want to be an astronaut and you go to school to be an astronaut, but how many people go to the moon? I mean,
Right.
there's two people or three people,
I
so
never
it's
thought of it
so,
that way.
yeah, so I mean, the likelihood of you going to the moon are so, even if you went to the school and they picked you to be one of the backups, whatever, it's only three people that go to the moon. So I didn't really, but so I sometimes think I didn't give him more. I wished I had given him more confidence, because you don't need a lot of people to believe in you.
Mm,
You only, like Charlie Brown, you only need one person, really. Maybe it's a teacher. Of course it's God. Eventually it becomes God that she believes in you, because you start to just look from within. You start
right.
to ask from within. And you don't need Nazareth to tell me I'm any good, or if I do a church show or whatever shows, it doesn't really matter anymore, because I know from within that I have been given a gift
Mm,
uh, of whatever my talent is. I don't know if it is comedy now, but it's everything though. It's talking, it's singing, it's jumping around, acting like you're crazy. I mean, all that is some kind of a talent
so when
that you
did you
can.
move to LA? When did you move to LA after the
Well,
pageants you won?
okay, so when I was in college then, and my parents had died, um, I had sent my videotape to Disneyland in in uh in
Florida,
Disneyland in
Orlando,
Anaheim, in
Anaheim. Oh
Anaheim,
yeah, our town. Yeah,
Disney
next to us.
production, and
Yes.
they were doing a thing called the All American College Workshop, which what they picked for the thing I did for Disney. At the time, I was 18 years old, and I sent them a videotape from my college. I had no money at that point, so I
Mm.
had a scholarship, and and I used to work in the dining hall in the morning to pay for my gowns to go to Miss Georgia and Miss Florida,
Mm.
because I didn't have any money, and I was embarrassed
Mm.
about working in the dining hall, because everybody else was rich. So I
Mm.
was, you covered it up. You didn't, you just, because everybody thought I had money, but I was working in the dining hall from 5 o'clock in the morning until like 9 o'clock to buy my gown to go to the Miss George or whatever. And during that time, I sent a videotape. There was a talent search, and they were looking for college kids. I was called the All American College Program, and they were looking for college kids. And so my theater friend videotaped me. Back then it was, the big
It
videotape.
came.
There was,
Yes.
the VHSs. Remember that back then?
Yes.
And I sent it in, and within I'd say 3 months later, I got a call. believe it or
from
not, in
from
my
Disney.
dormitory at the college. Praise the Lord. Really, this was all. And at the time, I had fallen away from I was not as evangelical. I had never fallen away. I just wasn't very demonstrative about my Christianity, and
Hmm.
because I was I was in theater. You didn't say too much. Anyways, so during this time, but I always back to the moral compass. There was always that. I always thought it was an umbrella over me that said this was not the right thing to do.
Right.
I had that base of coming down to that old fashioned altar,
Right.
for Pastor Cox and giving my life to Jesus, really. And so they called me and said that that they had selected me. I was one of 4 women that were selected out of thousands of people, thousands of these college kids. And I was invited to go open up a new show at Disney World called the Hoop-de-Doo Review.
Hmm.
Sounds very exciting, doesn't it? The Hoop-de-Doo Review.
Hope to do review.
And I went down there to do the summer, and then they would give me some college credit. And it was very exciting. In fact, it became 30 years later, it became the largest selling dinner theater show at the Disney World campus at Fort
Wow.
Wilderness. And I was one of the original companies. In fact, I was called the swing person. So I did all the parts. So I did the comedian, and I did the dancing girl, and I did the singing girl. So you see, I always could do. I
All
really
that.
wasn't great at everything. I mean, I was great at doing everything except doing one thing.
Hmm.
So I didn't have to be as good because I could do all of it, you see.
That's
So
interesting. Yes.
when I went to Disney World, then I became Miss Orlando, and I wanted to be Miss America, and all that didn't work out. I mean, I worked at Disney for 3 years, and they said, "Do you want to go to California and work at Disneyland? Because we're starting a new show in the Coca-Cola Pavilion in Disneyland called the Pecos Bill Wild West Show." So that's when I
Mhm.
came to LA, and
Oh,
they had
by
sent me
yourself.
out there. And I really had about a couple $100 in my pocket. I really had no money, but I had a job, which is very rare, in LA, right?
Right. Right.
And so I did the show. I did all the shows for Disneyland back then. And I put down the pageants because I had been first runner up so many times. I thought, forget this, I'm not doing this. The funny thing about it, Nazareth, is when I was at Disneyland, a girl came to me who was Miss Azusa. You know where Azusa is.
Yes. Yes.
And
Exactly.
she was just somebody had knew I had done the pageants. They always wanted me to be in the Miss California pageant. And I said, forget this, I'm not doing this again. Because I felt like I was as good as I could be, and I still didn't win. So I just shook it off, and I said, I'm moving on to the next juncture. By that time, I didn't have any parents, and I didn't have really any back. We didn't have a home to go to. And so you really were, you were making your own path.
Mm.
And so when I was out at Disneyland, this girl came to me, and she was Miss Azusa, and I gave her everything that I had for Miss Florida. I was the first runner up. So, I mean, I couldn't have gotten much closer. I won the talent and the swimsuit and didn't win the pageant. So there you
Mm.
go. And actually, I was a very bitter beauty queen by that point. So I needed to
Really?
move on. Yes.
Really? Were you upset? Were you angry?
Oh, I
That.
cried for like years. I cried for years about this. Because I really wanted to be Miss America. I didn't really want to be Miss Florida. I wanted to be Miss America. I figure if you're going to dream, you need to dream big, right, Nazareth?
Right.
Uh, and I always had that kind of confidence. And so I gave her everything, and I told her exactly what to do. And guess what happened to her? She
What?
became Miss California with
Oh.
my gown and my song and my arrangement. And she went on to, I think she was like 4th runner up at Miss America. And
Wow.
I always thought she had the pinky of my talent, really. And I thought, so,
You should have done it.
sometimes the thing is that sometimes it's timing. Everything is timing. And you
Right.
just don't know why things are the way they are. You don't know where the paths are, the doors are going to open up. And I didn't know, I just didn't know where my future was at all. And I had started in LA, started to do improv comedy in Los Angeles at Paramount Studios.
And you
And
were
it
with
was a
some
group.
great people like Jimmy Brogan and Henry Winkler
Yes,
and all that.
and Brian Cranston was in my class for years, and some of the big stand-ups. Kip Addotta was in my
Oh
class,
yeah.
and Jimmy was in my class, and we were in the top improvisational stand-up class at the Paramount Studios, which
Wow.
was very
Big deal.
prestigious. Yeah, who would come in? Milton Berle came in a couple times, and the Happy Days cast would always come in and out because they were filming Happy Days at the time. Rhonda was in. She was not in my class, but she was doing Happy Days. I knew Rhonda from the Chuck Barris shows. We
Rhonda
always
Shear,
did
yeah.
the Chuck Barris shows. Because we had to make money. We had to make a living. And so that's when my teacher said to me, I had written a sketch with Miss America in it. And a guy named Billy Reback wrote it with me. And he became the producer of Tool Time for Tim Allen.
Oh,
He became
Tool
the
Time.
executive producer. So, but we did, we're all kids. What do we know? We did, we were all under 25 years old. And I wrote this sketch, and I did this sketch. And my teacher said his name was Harvey Lembeck. You remember Harvey Lembeck? Harvey Lembeck was in all the Beach Party movies, and he was Eric Von Zipper that did the motorcycle thing. If you watch all those old movies with Annette Funicello, all those old Beach Party movies, he was also in Stalag 17. You remember that? Well, if you ever watch those old movies, they're on really late. I'm aging myself. Anyways, he said to me, you need to take this character that you do, the Miss America in the sketch, and go down to the Melrose Improv.
Yes.
And do it in one. He told me to do this. And I had never been to a comedy club. I didn't even know stand-up. I'd never watched even the Tonight Show. It wasn't something that was on the Richter scale that I wanted to be. And I took my boyfriend at the time played the piano. So I took him down to play the Miss America music, Play Me On. And I went down to the Melrose Improv. Nazareth, you know who goes there.
Oh, I know. I performed there. All the
and
big
I followed
talent.
Richard Lewis.
Ooh, okay.
The first time I ever did stand-up. In my swimsuit, crown, and the banner, I followed Richard Lewis onto the improv stage. And I did my 5-minute thing I had written it in one, and that's when I started stand-up. It was just, I killed, actually. And all those comics were kind of mean to me because they thought I was like a novelty, I wasn't really doing real stand-up. And that's how the stand-up started. And the Miss America started because I was so angry that I hadn't won Miss America. I couldn't get to Miss America. So I took all that and put it into this character that was like a knockoff of the girl that beat me. So,
and then you did Star Search. Star Search, some people, of course, a lot of people remember it, but that's like the America Got Talent and The Voice together.
It was back then. Remember, they did the dance. They had the dancing. You'd go up against another person, and Ed McMahon was the host, and it was on Fox. It was huge, actually, back then.
It was a huge show. People sat home and waited for it.
Did you ever do Star Search, Des?
No, I never did. I was just I don't know why I did not. I did not do it. No, but I know a lot of people who did it, who really. It helped their career. And you did the comedy. You were in the comedy.
I did the comedy, yes. And I really thought I was going to win the whole time because it's called Star Search. So I felt like Sinbad had won.
Yes.
They all look. A lot of the guys that won, they look like stars. It was not really. They were good stand-ups, but it was more about they had it. Whatever it is, they had it. So So I felt like it was a shoo-in for me because I always thought I had it. I never thought I was that great of a stand-up or that pretty or whatever it was, but I would win stuff all the time because I believed that I was going to do it. And
Right.
so that's one belief. And I'll never forget at the end of I won all the show. I won a lot of the shows, and I won my first half of the show. In fact, I beat Bob Zaney. I beat a lot of Dennis Miller. I beat him.
Wow.
Greg
Wow.
Proops. Greg Proops, you know, who did Whose Line Is There Anyway? I beat him.
Wow.
And then, so I won the first half, and then the second half, somebody else won, and it was a girl, another girl at the time. And
Ooh.
guess what? She looked like a star too, which I hadn't planned on that. Because I figured no guy is going to be able to beat me. Because I had the bugle beads and all that stuff, and
Right.
I had outfits, and I had the lashes, and I had the big personality, and I had the jokes. But I worked very clean. Always worked clean. I never worked dirty in this,
Yes,
even in
you
the
did. I remember that.
because of that moral compass. Even though I was not professing my Christianity at all, I just wasn't like them. That's why I didn't hang out at the Comedy Store. I just didn't fit in with them. It was that I felt like why did I have to become like those people if I had I felt good about myself.
Mm,
Even though, it's back to that 14-year-old that gave her life to Christ, really.
that's
It was that
amazing.
it was that umbrella for all those years, Nazareth.
God's
That was both.
protection. God's, yeah.
It was a protection kind of. I'm not saying I was a nun, but I
No.
really did not. That's why I never hung out at the Comedy Store, because my friend would always say, "Come down and hang out with Sam Kennison and Dice Clay and all those big." If you watch the shows that are on Netflix now, they've got that show about the Comedy Store, and
Yes.
you can see how seedy the life was. It was just so dark and seedy. A lot of those people were just aimless. They um
Mm.
they didn't have parents, just like me. I didn't have that. And they didn't either, but they didn't have a school bus come and pick them up and take them to an Assembly of God church, is what
Who
happened.
was your Leslie? I know your father. You mentioned earlier your father was, alcoholic and drunk and stuff. It didn't
Mhm.
amount to. Who was your father figure? Who did you attach yourself as a father figure to you?
I had a grandfather that was Italian from New Jersey,
Mm.
and my grandfather was everything. He was he came over from Italy, and he was Catholic when he came over, and he didn't like being Catholic, so he became Presbyterian, and so we stayed at their house a lot, and that's why we would always go to Sunday school and church. He would
Mm.
always make us go to Sunday school and to church, so we would always the kids always went.
Right.
And even though Italians are very they a lot of morals, and they're I really thought if you did wrong you were going to hell, basically, is what it was. Basically. And I think that it was that fear of, I didn't want to go to hell. So
Mm.
it kept me out of a lot of bad situations. It also protected me in situations I think that could have been really ugly. I mean, it could have easily gone the other way. Easily.
Now, now, when you were at Star Search and you made it all the way to the final show and all that, and you didn't win, what was your dreams after that? Where do you go? Because you ended up in a farm in Ohio. I want to know what was
I
going through
was
your mind.
just so depressed. I was so upset. In fact, I even cursed God.
Ooh.
I was very upset because I couldn't believe that he would have allowed me to lose. I
Mm.
had done everything right. I had tried to be a good person. I never was mean to anybody. I helped people. I I always had every Sunday, we didn't have much money as actresses and comics. So I always had spaghetti dinners and everybody would come over. I would feed them with my last
Oh,
$20. And
oh,
and I had roommates, and so if I had a date, I always made sure he was rich enough so that I could bring home a lot of leftovers so that
oh,
everybody could eat, because we didn't have much. I mean, although we didn't even know we didn't have much because we were so excited to be in show business. I mean,
right.
it was just every door was, and I did some commercial. Sometimes I got a commercial, so then the money would just come in and wah, and then I got a couple series, and then I did several episodic stuff. I always had an agent, and I did a couple big theater shows in LA. So that was a good job, because I did Grease out there for a year, Grease in LA, and
Oh,
so I was making money. I was always, I quite honestly, Nazareth, like most people, I was never a waitress. I never had to be a waitress because I always seemed to squeak it out.
mm,
I always seemed to squeak it out. But there were some. But after my father died, my brother was only 14 or 13 at the time. Well, he was 9 in the beginning, and he went to live with my older brother. And then things were not going that great, so he wanted to come live with me. But I didn't have that much money, so when he came out to live with me, we had a 1-bedroom apartment. He was in the 8th grade, and so it was not. They didn't have food stamps, and we didn't have any of that stuff.
mm.
So I would have to work enough, and I always seemed to. This sounds funny, but I always had boyfriends that had a lot of money, so they would always buy food for the house or whatever, and it was just it was. But I was so, even still, I was so used to the struggle. I was so used to
Mm.
it that it didn't seem bad. I was always upbeat, happy. I was
Yes.
always thankful. I was always very grateful that I was not sick, or that I had a mother that loved me completely, and I had some background. I was really grateful that I had the experience in the 9th grade with God, and all those things. You don't know how you're
So,
going to pull them out.
why Ohio? Why did you
Well,
move to?
I'll tell you what happened. I started. I was doing stand up on the road, so I was doing all the nightclubs. I was doing the casinos, and I was traveling to the comedy zones and all the clubs, and I became a headliner. And I was on the road, and I was in in Reno. Actually, I was in Reno, and I was doing a show at the Hilton Hotel. And I was just ready. I was older. Now I had been doing stand up over 10 years by that
Mm,
time. And I felt like I wanted to have a child. Really, I wanted to have children, and I
mm,
wanted to have something more. I felt like this, was this it? I wasn't sure I was ever going to be a household name.
mm.
And I had done a lot, although I never thought I was going to give it up, to tell you the truth. I always thought I could continue it, but I met a guy, and I met my husband in Reno, Nevada,
Mm.
and he was with Loretta Lynn. He was at the Hilton Hotel. So I just met him, and that's what happened. And within a year, we were married. And
Wow.
so we commuted. I kept my place in LA, and he had a place in Nashville, because he was on the road for 20 years with Loretta.
Uh-huh.
And so I kept it all going. But when I had my child, my John, my first child, it was very hard to pull it all off. It was
Mm.
because he'd get on the bus, but I would have to take the kid. I would have to take
Right.
my son. And so then I had to have a babysitter, and then it was just very difficult. But I could, I loved the art so much. I loved stand up so much
Mm.
that did it okay. And then I got pregnant with the second one a couple of years later. And I took the two of them. I kept doing the road, and I had a nanny, and it was very difficult though. It's not easy. You're going to bed at midnight, and then my husband would be on the road going someplace else. So I was basically by myself, basically. And I would take the babysitter and in the van, and we would haul the kids. And it was just, and my two boys were like the wacky, they were like crazy kids. I mean, they were just constant. They would just run and run and run. And I didn't understand why they wouldn't just sit there. Why can't you just sit there? And and that is when I decided that this just wasn't working. So we couldn't do this anymore. And my husband had the farm up here in Ohio, and we just decided together that we were just going to chuck our lives, give it all up, and raise the kids. Because I really had felt like I had a shot. I had followed my dreams, and now once you have children, it's really it's them. I mean, they come first.
That's amazing. Not many parents think that way. Some of them still continue like, oh, my career is more important. So this is amazing. Your sacrifice like that. I mean, that's
Well, it was very, very difficult though, Nazareth. It was I did not love it. I mean, I went kicking and screaming, but I really felt like I was at my wit's end. The children were they were just so active. They were boys, and they would climb and jump, and they did everything the opposite that I would do. I wasn't, I was such a prissy girl. I was a prissy girl, heels and lashes and hair. And, I had these boys that were like Indians, they were like cowboys and Indians constantly. They were fighting and jumping, and they would listen. And so when I took them here, when we came out, and my husband had this was a family farm that he had bought from his father, who had passed away. And we just decided that we were just going to sell everything we owned and raise our children in, he always thought it was God's country. Of course, I loved LA. I thought that was kind of God's country too, but, but they just were happy here too. So I had to start to learn how to be happy here. And what could I do here? Because it was these people in remote areas, they don't have your experiences at all.
right.
I even felt like when I first came to Ohio, I couldn't tell them really what I did, because they would think I was a hooker in a bar or something. They didn't know show business. What did they know? In fact, we really didn't have a job the first couple of years. We were trying to, what were we going to do? I mean, we only have 100 acres, so you can't really make a living on the farm. There wasn't really a lot of money. But it's amazing. The kids just loved it. I mean, I couldn't have wished for anything else. They loved the climbing, the shooting, the guns. I got millions of guns around here. And then my husband would go on the road, and I'd be so scared, and he'd say, well, you got all these guns. I said, yeah, I know how to twirl one. I was a flag twirler, with the guns, but I don't know how to shoot any guns. I've never even shot a gun. I would never shoot a person. What was I going to shoot a person? I mean, so it was just like such a fish out of water life, But I think that's when I really started to pray a lot, because I was all by myself. He would go on the road, and I'd be all by myself. And I would, for a while, I was drinking heavily by myself. And, I'd go to the doctor, and I'd ask him for a pill of some sort. And then I'd be so crazed, because he'd tell me that I could get addicted. So I would cut it up into little pieces, and I would and I would try to lick it off my hand because I'd be so anxious, and I was all by myself. And, I didn't know snow. The snow can stop you completely. I mean, snow is.
You're from Florida and then LA, right?
and then LA, and then, the kids, you'd have to bundle up, and like, let's say the pipes froze, and I'd be all by myself in the middle of this cornfield and thinking, like, what do I do now? My husband would call me from the road and say, you got to go into the well in the barn and use your hair dryer and heat up the pipes. And I think, are you kidding? I said, what, are you kidding? Can I call? You couldn't even call anybody. I said, there's critters in that well. I was not going to go when there was critters, that's for sure. So, I mean, I have stories and stories and stories.
Were you angry? Were you angry at your husband? He's doing what he still loves.
Oh, yes, because he was allowed. And how come I was not allowed? But, even though I was angry at him, I really was. And it's a constant thing. It's not like it goes away, because this isn't really how I envisioned it all. But I felt like these children were my responsibility, and I wanted to be. I had lost my mother, and my father wasn't there either. So I had to be their moral compass. I had to be it all. And if I had to do it, that's what I had to do. So I didn't shy away from it. I jumped right, I really dove in. In fact, that third year we were here in Ohio, we didn't have a job, and, we were really struggling. And my husband's partner was rich, and so they bought this theater, and so they started this theater thing there. And it was, we owned this theater in the next town, beautiful state-of-the-art theater, and nobody was buying tickets. Nobody was buying any tickets because, in the middle of okay, I'm not saying that they're cheap in rural America, but let's just put it this way. They're a member of the bird family. Cheap, 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 cheap.
And you bought a church too, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, we had this theater, and we weren't making any money, and we decided to do a contest because I knew how to do contests. And we were trying to advertise on the NBC affiliates around here. And what happened was, it was so expensive to buy the 30-second spots, that I said, well, let's just buy the half hour, and let's just do our own show. And so he knew how to do all that stuff, because he was a tech guy, so he could do cameras, he could do the sound. And so we bought all this theater stuff. I mean, we bought all the cameras, we bought everything. We bought the half hour on an NBC affiliate. And I was the host of the show, so I'd write the show, and he would shoot the show, and we would audition people in the area. This is before American Idol started. And within 2 years, we were the #1 show on Sunday nights on NBC in Lima and in Dayton. We were the #1 show, and we produced it on a shoestring. And that's how we made a living here in Ohio for the next 12 years, really.
So God gave you back part of what you wanted to do.
Yes, he did. He did. And my children were camera people, never thinking that they would want to do show business. I'm thinking they're going to be, they're going to be regular, right? They're going to just be, maybe get a big job and have a regular paycheck, like be a normal person. Well, you have kids now, so you know they're watching you.
Yeah, my son's already in the same field. He's a film director. So he's not.
Did you want
no
that?
paycheck.
I mean, because
I want him to do what he wants.
See, I just didn't want them to have to struggle. I just wanted them to be regular. I mean,
but you said something. I love what you said once when your son said, "I don't need to finish college." Steve Jobs didn't. Tell us about that.
Well, that's my second one. He just decided they both went to Ohio State. Well, that's a joke, really, but he just said, nowadays, Mom, people don't graduate anymore. They just learn, and it's not important to have a degree. And I said, well, just think if Steve Jobs would have graduated from college. Just think how much bigger that that company of his would have been, there wouldn't have been 12 iPhones. There would have been just one. That would have got it right with one. In fact, that logo would have been a whole apple right there.
That is so
But
funny. That is so funny.
that's where all the comedy comes from, because the kids are, and now in this pandemic, the kids don't even know, they're at home, they're alone, and so it's important for them to be inspired by their parents if at all possible. And I think that even though we were not in LA anymore and my husband wasn't on the bus anymore, we were very creative, obviously, because we had to make our own job because nobody would hire us. So I guess they got it from us, the entrepreneurship. You know, sometimes you can't follow. I think that some people are they have the voice from within telling them that they don't. They're not followers really. They're making their own path. Do not go where the path leads you. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. That line.
Yes, and that's what you did, and that's what I do, and that's what we don't follow the
No,
regular path.
and actually, don't you think, Nazareth, that when people tell you no, it's like almost an
It's like
aphrodisiac for you.
yes,
It's like,
you challenge me to do it now. You're giving me more
like
reasons to do it.
oh, really? You don't want me to be Miss America? You're not going to pick me? Well, guess what? I became the comedy Miss America. I was Miss America in comedy, really. And who would have thought? But I don't know if at the time you really, sometimes it's just one step at a time. It's just this pandemic is the same way. We really don't know where it's leading us, really. We're just kind of following, trying to stay healthy, stay safe, do the rules. If you're at home, if you're at home with the children, you're doing the best all God asks you to do is the best you can possibly do. And then you just got to let it go because he's in charge and we can only do what we can do. And then we just got to give it up to him and just do one step at a time. And I think that that's the whole journey of the comedy. Don't you think?
Exactly. One step, because you don't know. You don't know if you're going to be picked for the next one. You don't know if it's going to happen, and you're always trying. But, I just want to let the audience and the listener know, it's not like you quit. You're still doing comedy. You're back. You just did the
30
Huckabee
years. I've
show
been doing it
again.
30 years.
And you're still doing stand-up. So God didn't really take that away
No.
from you. But
No, he didn't. And you know what? I prayed, once the children were older, I stayed at home and I did the TV show for 10, 12 years. And I did pageant, I produced some Miss Ohio pageants and I helped open up doors for other girls to tell them how, they could do what I had done. And
you did the clean comedy
I
competition, the clean comedy thing. Tell us about that.
And then, well, that was a very selfish thing, actually, Nazareth. I was out here and I was very down and I had my friends were in LA and New York and Nashville. And, you know that when you're talking to us, we're connecting regardless because
right.
we know how it is. But regular people really don't know. So it's really hard to talk to them about the challenges because everybody thinks, oh, if you were on the Tonight Show, then you're rich or you've made it. They don't understand that that's just a little step. It's not really for us.
Yes.
It's just, little. It doesn't seem that big, it's because that's what we do. And we know people that have done it all the time. So, and they're just regular people. Like you shouldn't ever put anybody up on a pedestal. You should only put God and Jesus up on a pedestal.
Amen.
You shouldn't put people up there. Because it's not about people. It's we're all in the same boat together. Like the people say, but people have different size boats,
Right.
I wish I had a ship. I wish I had a ship, but I'm driving a 2003 Ford Taurus, so I don't have a ship. But when you do what you love, so all those times that I would get, I'd get down because I was very lonesome. Um, I said, well, I know how to do contests. Why don't I just start my own comedy contest? Because I had started doing open mics like in Chicago because I was trying to do stand up again. That the children were in high school, so
Mm.
I could go a bit. So I started my open mics, and it was so dirty. Everybody was so dirty, and even the veteran comics were, it was like I didn't remember it being that dirty.
Exactly, me too. When I left the clubs and I came back, I could not hear the comments. Like, this is way, way worse than ever been. And I just left.
And but
I'm like,
here's
I'm
the
not doing.
thing, Nazareth, if you're not there doing the clean stuff and letting them see uh, kind of being a mentor to them, they don't know. The kids are know that there's another way to go here.
Right,
That they don't see Jerry Seinfeld in the open mics. They're seeing some of the roughest of the rough, or the wackiest of the wacky.
right.
So I think once I started going, and I just couldn't believe it was that dirty. And I thought, why don't I start? This was 12 years ago. I've been doing the Clean Comedy Challenge, which is a 3-day boot camp convention where
Mm.
I invite people at all levels, at any place in the comedy business. If they want to come and be a part of the convention, they can come. They pay the fee and they come. And I only
Mm.
allowed 25 people in. So it's a very hands-on thing. It's a very
Right.
hands-on. And we do it usually in a regular comedy club. But if I thought to myself, if I don't open up a door for them to think this is the way to go, and I was doing a lot of all-female shows when I was doing the open night mics in at Zanies in Chicago, and I just couldn't believe that. Okay, so now this sounds sexist, but girls were that dirty. I just didn't believe girls were that dirty.
Mm.
I thought, okay, we've heard some of the Comedy Store guys be that dirty, but I never heard women be that dirty.
Right.
And I thought, why don't we do this? And so that's what I've started doing it. And now I'm in my 12th year. And it was such a blessing. I'm telling you, the blessing of the Clean Comedy Challenge started me doing stand-up again. And it opened up other doors. And then I did a showcase at the Christian convention, and I started just being authentic and I was the comedian.
Yes.
I didn't know I could still do it, really. But I guess it's like a bicycle. You start, you're a little wobbly in the beginning, just like the pandemic. I really haven't done a show, really, an hour show since last March.
I
It's been a
know.
long
I
time.
know. Well, I'll
But
tell you what. I know the time. I know when I asked you to come to the show, you said an hour. Can we go that long? Well, if you need to cut it out, well, we've been over an hour, and I'm
oh, we
enjoying
need to
every.
stop. Just tell me to shut
I
up.
love it. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna tell you to shut up, but I just want you in this closing moment, just encourage someone. It could be a young teen, maybe could be a mother who always had these dreams of doing something, but the trajectory of her marriage and her raising kids was different than what she planned. What do you say to those
I
people?
I just say to those people, hang on.
Hmm.
Help is coming. And guess what his name is? His name is Jesus.
Amen.
Don't fret. I mean, it's okay to complain to somebody too. Don't feel like you're the go tell a friend. Stand up is so therapeutic because you're purging. Like, I can talk about how much my life is just so hard, and I can make it funny, and I'm purging this angst, this bitterness, this angry stuff, and then it becomes joyful, you see. So I
Hmm.
say, don't fret. Just do one thing at a time, and it will hang on.
Hmm.
Hang on. Help is coming.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Leslie, so much for being with me on the show, taking the time. I want to, I want to tell the audience, you might have the voice of Barbie, but you are, if you ever see Leslie speak at a women's conference or at a comedy show or at a cancer fundraiser, for the, she is powerful, she is amazing, she's real, as you notice, just opened up completely. Yes, I was angry at my husband. Yes, I was angry at God. Yes, I was, and just
And you
amazing.
know
So
what?
how,
It's okay. We're normal. We're humans.
amen. What,
We're human.
how can they get a hold of you, Leslie?
FunnyLeslie.com. Funny Leslie. Now, if you didn't think I was funny, it's okay. Just don't tell anybody, okay?
No,
Just
this shows,
keep
this
it
podcast is
to
not about you being
yourself.
funny. Yes. This podcast, I don't try to have the comedians be funny. If you wanna be, if you wanna hear them in their arena, go to YouTube and watch them, or go to their site and watch them. That's why this whole show, I don't try to bring the funny, but I want you to be real. So
You know what? You know what? God gave us this funny. He gave it to us. And I don't try to be funny. I really don't try to be funny. It's just what you are. I mean, people would say to me I was fun. I didn't think, I didn't pick this.
mm,
It picked me. So I think whatever your passion is, just lean into it and don't think it's over. Listen, I'm old, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am because it's none of your business. But it's never over. It's never over. You can always reinvent. You can always change course. It's just think that it will be, and it will be.
okay, last thing, and I want to add this. Can you speak to a teenager, a female, a young teenager, maybe 13, 14, 15, 16, and that doesn't feel she's pretty, that doesn't feel she's good, doesn't have the confidence? Talk to her, Leslie.
You know what? Never thought I was pretty. My mother thought I was the clunkiest kid in the house. I mean, I had freckles. My hair was curly. People made fun of my voice. They always made fun of my voice. And just hang on, because this is just a moment in life. It's
Mm,
not. You mustn't worry that this isn't all it's going to be, because it's not. I have outlived my mother 20 years. 20 years that God has given me the opportunity to have more experiences that she didn't have. So just know that there is tomorrow.
mm.
There's always tomorrow. It gets dark sometimes, but never, I always used to listen. This is just a little trick. I used to always put Christmas music on, or something light and happy, like right now. I don't know if you can see it, but I have my Christmas tree lights still on. I never take my Christmas tree down because it makes me feel good. So
Oh,
just find little things that make you feel light and happy. And because it does get, I'm sure especially for girls, they think they're not pretty, they're not skinny enough. They aren't Miss America. And I never was Miss America, but look what happened to me. I just kept doing it and kept doing it. And if you get beaten down a bit, there's always tomorrow. You can always get back up.
that's
Just
gold.
just you know, good health is everything. Just be healthy and don't destroy your bodies. Just be
Yes.
healthy. And and if a boyfriend tells you if you don't have to follow boyfriends to tell you, that you're pretty. You're beautiful. God didn't make anybody ugly. He There
Amen.
are different gifts that we all get. And I just think if you could just hang on through even this pandemic, don't you think so, Nazareth? In the
Yes.
pandemic, it gets a little gloomy. I mean, we're all by ourselves. We're with the spouse all the time. Oh my goodness, who wants to talk to them all the time? I mean, I already know them, okay? But I think if you can just think it's just this moment, there's other moments, and there's going to
Mm,
be a moment. And I never would believe that seeing my child graduate from college, or seeing him play music or do something that I just, I mean, I cry harder for that. It is such a big joy in my heart that who would have thought that I, as a comedian who loved this business, loved the lights, loved it all, I get so much a kick out of these, my kids. You know, I get mad at them and I like to smack them upside the face sometimes, but they bring me so much accomplishment that I would have never had if I hadn't have said, well, I need to go this way. I need to do the, you know, I've already done this. Why don't I try this? So
Man.
just take heart. Don't be afraid. Don't, you know, there's always, the sun will always come up. It'll always be there. Don't be afraid.
Amen. Is that the tractor in the back? All right. Well, thank you so much, Leslie. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. This is gold, what you just shared with us.
I
And
talked so long.
no, you did great. And I love you so much. And I hope, I pray we can work together again. I know we'll do it at CCA or some other place. But thank you so much for your time. And I want to,
Thank you for having me, and thank you for
anytime.
having me, and God
Eh,
bless everybody, and
God
God bless America.
Amen. And God bless America. And thank you guys for watching. And I want to remind you that in a few weeks, we're going to have Lee Strobel on the podcast on February 16. And also, I want to remind you every weeknight at 7:30 p.m., we have this wonderful show called Live with Naz, Quarantining in Corona, where you can be funny for an hour and be encouraged. Love you guys. Thank you so much. And good night.